Alright guys, we're going to take you for a little test drive in the VW Jetta GLI. This one has some rear bearing noise. I'm going to try to get that on the video just so you can hear what the bad bearing sounds like as you're driving, and we're going to show you how to fix that. Alright, so that last video just showed you the growling noise. That was not exhaust noise. I was out of gear just drifting along, and that rumble is actually the sound of this wheel hub. So I've already done the basics, taken off the lugs and gotten the car up on the jack, placed the wheel that I removed underneath just for safety. I'm not getting underneath the car, so I'm set with that for right now. Next order of business is actually to loosen that screw right there, which usually they're in pretty stinking tight, especially on a wheel hub that has been heat cycling like this one has, because it's so darn old and just beat up. So this thing gets super hot, which is why my wheel would get stuck to the hub or to the brake rotor. You can see that I anti-seized it. It still actually took a little bit of work to get that thing off after just driving the car for 1 week with this heat cycling. So now you'll notice that I've already gotten that screw just a bit loose. What that required was actually using an impact screwdriver. So I just reduce it down to that 1/4 inch because my impact drivers are just cracked. So and then you give it a few whacks without even bothering to turn it, and then preload with that loosening. Give it a good whack on the end, and it'll just start breaking that thing loose. And now it's just a screwdriver. You can just take that thing right off. So next we'll be taking down the caliper. So we'll get behind that. And you can see I've already started to do a little bit of pry work there. That's going to take basically long screwdriver, preferably full tang, something that's actually going to allow you to whack through it. And you're just going to keep just working around, whacking that thing loose there. Okay, so with a little bit of patience, you just keep working your way around the edge here. You'll have to spin this a few times to get yourself around, knocking out, around, knock out on it, and eventually you'll get the cap to pop out there. So it's got a pretty decent lip on it, usually with a little bit of a sealant. So that's the big bolt that we're going to have to get out. But in the meantime, we have to take off caliper and get the rotor out of the way so that we can just remove this hub once that bolt's gone. That's going to require 13 millimeter that you're going to want to loosen here. There is not much room for you to use a socket here because of the brake line. So you're going to need to use a 13 millimeter wrench to loosen that. And then what you will notice is that once you get it started to loosen, you're going to see that it's going to spin the slide as well. So you're going to need to lock on here with another wrench to be able to loosen that bolt out. Same thing on the bottom end. So that's a 13 millimeter here. I'll let you know what that is in just a second. That's 15 millimeter locked onto the inside slide there. And then I just have my 13 millimeter ratchet in here. And already loose enough that I can probably just go by hand now. Even just the weight of the other wrench there is enough to hold that in place for that particular one. Out with the bolt, and then down to the bottom for the same routine. So there I'm on, no worries. And then we're going to just make sure that this is going to look like I'm tightening it, because that bolt is coming in the other way. So, and once we get it kind of looser, then we can remove that caliper. We've taken out the 13 millimeter bolts here that went through the caliper to hold it into the slide pin there. You might want to just check that your slide pins actually move well while you're here. So you just kind of move them in and out, make sure that they actually glide well, that way you're not dragging. This thing was on really tight. That rear piston, actually, if you notice, it has detents in it. That actually has to go in by screwing it in. There's a tool that you can use that'll lock into the detents and gives you a counter pressure here that you just screw it in. It's basically like a vice grip that turns this, and more like a press that works against the outside of the caliper here. I just grabbed it with the vice clamps on the outside lightly. Didn't take much, and I just turned it a little bit. That takes it in, which will make it much easier for me to slide back on. But I had to pry it off, as you can see, because it was on there pretty tightly. So when I just kind of move that out of the way, pop the pads out. You can take a look at those as well while you're at it. Make sure that you've got decent amount of brake pad left on there, which is good. And I'll clean out that the slides there as well. We're going to take this bracket off next. In order to remove the caliper bracket, we're going to need to go around to the back, and you can see down here and up top I've got the M14. That's a triple square in there. You can see I've got a really long triple square, so this is interesting because it's a metric 14 triple square that requires a 5/8 inch adapter or socket on the end. Why they went from metric to standard, I don't know, but they did. So I have actually just locked on a 5/8 inch wrench, and believe it or not, that thing is, again, so heat cycled in, I've had to use a hammer to whack this thing down just to get it loose. Now, the design of the M14 is kind of nice once you kind of get it loose, because then I can literally just walk my wrench forward, take it back, use it to loosen that bolt. So we've got the bracket off now. You can see where that pier comes through. Again, those bolts are long, like very long. Took that M14 triple square to be able to get those out. They basically fought the whole way, which is just fun. Anyway, so got the bracket out of the way, then had to bang on the rotor in the center here. So just banged on it on the center, and then literally had to actually tap it out from the back side of the rotor there to get it to unseat from the hub. You can see this hub has seen, well, maybe better days, I'll say. And you can tell that's gotten through a few heat cycles there. And that's as well as that thing spins. It just does not go. So we're replacing that today. Next on the order of business is getting this bolt loose, which is apparently a nightmare. So we're going to go with bigger leverage and more brute force, because you know what they say about both. If you can't get the bolt loose, you're not using enough leverage, and just it needs a generous application of brute force. So there's the setup. This actually, again, took loads of both. So lots of force, lots of leverage. I had to slide that lever out. That's actually the jack handle all the way down, probably a foot further or so off of there, and then just hang on it. This thing started to move ever so slightly. Just come back, reset, move it through, and now you'll see we can actually get that thing loose. So I did use the impact driver just to pull that the rest of the way out. Long bolt, anti-seize on the inside, I'm sorry, Loctite on the inside. Now, again, here comes the worrisome part. This thing's so heat set on there, I'm kind of worried about how this is going to come off. But, oh my gosh, easiest part of the whole job, right there. Unbelievable. So just side by side, here's the old one. You can see Might even be able to hear a little bit of the grinding there, but you can see that that's got way too much play in it. So I go to the new one, none of that, smooth bearing. So that's part of the grinding right there, is that in and out. So you'll notice that there is a pickup right here. This is actually the ABS sensor sticking out, because the magnetos or the pickups are actually inside the hub. So, all right, on with the new. So should just slide on. We'll see how that goes. easier to take off than to put on. All right, so we got the new hub slid on, bolt back in place, torque wrench to set to 133. We've got that locked on. That's 133, and now I have to do an extra 180 degrees of turn on this bolt. So I basically I'm going to probably start from vertical and work my way down to horizontal, and then do that again. So I'll do 290s to make the 180. Okay, so that actually took using not only the torque wrench to get up to 133, but then using, again, the long breaker, or the extended breaker with basically the jack handle on the end to get that 180. And I probably only got about 150, and that was standing on it. So either I need to gain weight or, well, get a little stronger. Anyway, now we've got rotor put back in place. I did put a little layer of anti-seize on the new hub facing, so that it will actually let me take this off a little more easily. Got my set screw back in place to hold the caliper, or the rotor hat on. I've gone ahead and just put a couple of bolts in, so that made sure that I was lined up. And I might need to use those actually to provide just a little bit of leverage when I'm locking some stuff back together here. We'll see. I don't think so on the back end though. All right, so I got the caliper bracket bolts back here. Again, kind of a tight squeeze back there with them. That's supposed to go in at 66 pound-feet of torque, and then another 90. I don't get this German stuff. Why don't they just give us the absolute torque? Why not just call it 87 pound-feet? 66 plus 90. Okay. I've gone ahead and put the brake pads back in, and then now I'm going up with caliper, just sliding that back in place. Put the caliper bolts in, make sure they're snug there. Cap back on the front. Wheel goes up. We should be done on this side. So I've got the 13 millimeter threaded into the slide pin. Got my 15 holding the slide pin still. Got my 13 mil. This is a ratcheting. And I'm just going to snug it down. And then I'll just actually get a hold this way, give it a good squeeze. That'll lock this one still while I tighten in there. If you have massive grip strength like I have, that actually torques it to the exact specs. So using the old, as Derek on Vice Grip calls it, wrist dynamometer, and that'll give you 25 foot-pounds on that bolt there. Now we're just going to give a little tappy to put the cover back in place. So I'm just going to set. We'll just work around the edges. Up with the wheel, we're done. Wheels back up, caps back in tight, lugs are all on, 88 pound-feet of torque, checked with the torque wrench. So this side's done. You know what that means. Stand up, pat yourself on the back, and start going on the other side. All right, that's it for this episode. I'll save you all the cussing on the second side here, because I think this one will be a little, well, should be easier, right? Yeah, never. Anyway, as always, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Scotty Wrenches signing off. All right, quick little addendum. Went to the other side, got everything disassembled. Actually came apart pretty easily. This doesn't want to slide off. And listen to this. That is the sound of a bad bearing. Anyway, just wanted to do that little addendum for you. Have a great day. So, as I said, second side, always more fun than the first. There's the wheel bearing inside the hub. There's the inner race still stuck on the shaft. Gonna have to whiz wheel that off and then clean her all up and build it back up. Told you, second side, always more fun than the first. So that required cutting into it with the whiz wheel. There we go. There's the dust shield on the back. Had to pop that thing off. But that is basically the inner race of this bearing, which should have been there and with the dust seal on it. But that all got stuck onto that shaft. So now I'm going to clean that up, slide my new one on, reassemble.